So if I were to give you and 4 other classmates, colleagues, a ream of paper, and you were able to grab a team of 5 people and have a paper fight, with the only rules of the game being do no bodily harm and don't physically hurt any equipment or property planning equipment. And I gave you a minute to strategize. How would you figure out who would win? Okay, so if your team had 5 people and some other team had 6 people, and you had tall and short, so you could have offensive and defensive in a front line and a back line, and they all had folks about the same height, what would you do? Okay, and so if you're looking at success or performance of success of any organization 2 to 5 years out, part of it is under direct control of management, particularly perhaps for a smaller business such as yourself or a founder entrepreneur. But larger businesses, as well as different types of businesses in different industries, there are outside external industry effects or competitive effects, pressures, as well as those inside decisions that managers make. So Nate, if I were to give you a box of spaghetti and a bag of mini marshmallows, and I were to say, you got 10 minutes, create the tallest structure you can build, what would you do?
I suppose it would look like Tinker Toy from when I was young, and it would, just be sort of a lattice-like structure for as much as the weight could support.
Okay. And if I were to blow on it, or a fan were to blow on it, and wind were to, what would you do?
Would just hopefully the pieces would remain intact, and maybe I could be able to stand it back up again intact.
Okay. Okay. And if it didn't?
I start over, or just say, well, that was an external influence that we couldn't control. No one could have predicted that.
And everybody else that's doing it?
Right.
And everybody else that has that box of spaghetti and the mini marshmallows, you just give up and say, not this time?
Maybe in hindsight, I would have built it up against the wall, maybe something like that. Because now I would recognize, oh, this is a risk. So if I put it in a corner or something like that, so it had support. They are very good at providing a consistent service. I would say that. I would say generally when you walk into a Starbucks, you know that you are going to be greeted with a smile and generally friendlier service than is average in the service industry. I think they must do a pretty good job with their purchasing policies, because basically the cup of coffee tastes the same no matter where you go, if you're in Washington or Orlando. The unique element, I would say Starbucks coffee tastes different than others. So I do think when folks know coffee, they drink Starbucks, and I was like, oh yeah, that is not Caribou coffee. And I know they try to provide some things with the ambiance in terms of the seats and the music and all that, trying to make it a little bit more of a cafe type atmosphere.
Okay.
I've lost count if that's 5.
And so it's not just the resources, but in competition, there's this thing called heterogeneity among resources. So not every firm is going to have the exact same resources, even given the same industry. Okay, so these resources that you have that are both tangible, as well as the intangible resources combine together to create the advantage. So for example, a tangible resource would be a hammer. But the ability to use that hammer would be what's called capabilities. And so you're looking at the resources within the different silos, within the different functions, and then trying to combine it. So if we look at marketing, for example, and you're doing a functional analysis from your marketing class, I would hope that you're able to repeat the mantra of the 4 Ps: price, promotion, product, and placement. When you're looking at top management team and CEO, if there is a significant succession and a lot of hiring and firing of CEOs, or the top management is leaving or divesting their shares, that perhaps is something to take note of when you're looking at the resources within HR. So for example, Nike or Benetton, they do more of the design and the customer service, marketing, and sales, and they outsource the manufacturing to others. And so they focus on one particular activity rather than the entire value chain. How is your firm uniquely positioned to capture that opportunity, but also how are you as a manager going to manage the potential downside or the risks or the limitations and the difficulty to grow in these different counties for this particular example? And so in looking at those internal resources, we've looked at them in a couple of different ways. We looked at them as valuable, rare, and imitable or organization-wide. We've looked at them within different functions and how they combine and cross-rough across the functions. We've looked at them as strengths and weaknesses, as married with the opportunities and threats in the external environment.
Is it God's gift for entrepreneurs to have this charisma? Is it really? So then the people that failed, then God bestowed on them on that gift of failure? That was kind of a funny remark. But what is God's gift? What is this charisma that we're talking about? So then do we have a scale or a measure? Heck, let's make it even more scientific. Do we have a blood test to identify these individuals for these skill sets? Or is it something more? Or is it about actually understanding that these skill sets, the whole composition of the skill set, is really how you put them all together? How you put the analytical, the innovation, the creativity, the perseverance, the hard work, the seeking the opportunity, the vision, the leadership, and saying, in that broad picture, all of these parts need to be integral together to be successful.